like we've been given the baton to motivate these folks and tell them about our journey and about how FAMU has impacted us. So I guess it's a fraud. They must not know we two of the most toxic people when we start talking about dreams and entrepreneurship. So ain't no telling what we're about to reveal today.
Yeah, you talk, and when you talk about a path, like how deep do you want me to get? Because
we only have an hour, so
yeah, my path to film was it was a little tumultuous, and
well, share it. Let's talk about it.
I think I was like a surprise FAMU student because I didn't know you had to apply to go to college. So don't judge me.
Okay.
That just gives you a little bit of background on my family, and you know, some of the mentors that were around at the time, which wasn't a whole lot, but there was one, and forgive me, I can't remember his name, but he was my guidance counselor at the high school I was at. And he was like, hey man, where are you going to school? I was like, I don't know. He was like, have you applied? I was like, apply? Like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't have to apply to get into this school. Like, how do you,
okay, that's the logic.
how do you apply? Right. And he's like, you got to take the SAT. I was like, well, I took the pre-SAT. He said, how'd you do? I don't know. And so he gave me like this list of tasks to do. And none of this stuff was online then. Like, I think it was just getting to the point where people could potentially apply online and all of that stuff. But I went home, I told my mom, I said, hey, this dude at school told me I got to take this test. And she's like, all right, she set it up. Now, I found out later that half of my friends were in these classes, the prep them and whatnot, not me. I went, took the test, came back. Luckily, I did decent. I won't say that I did incredible, but luckily I did decent. I went back to my guidance counselor. I said, I'm done. I took the test. He was like, no, you got to apply to a school. I was like, well, I only knew about a few different schools. Like I knew of Harvard. I knew of Morehouse.
Okay.
And I had just learned about FAMU because some of my homies in the band.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about it.
And then he so happened to go to FAM. So I was like, yeah, these schools, this is who I want to apply to. This is where I want to apply. And FAM didn't send me an acceptance letter.
Of course.
So I did not know I got in. We had to call FAM. And then went up there for what's the thing called that you do before? Tops.
Yeah.
We went up for Tops. That was when I was like, okay, yes, absolutely.
I made the right decision.
I'm coming here.
So you already know my FAMU story. Most people do. I'm a third generation rattler, and I've gone to every homecoming with the exception of 2020 since like the 80s. So my dad was a rattler. My uncles, you know, they were Omegas and rattlers too in the band. My dad was one of the first DJs. So it was a no-brainer, but they still allowed me to apply to others. So I applied to Howard, to Clark, to Spelman. And my mom's like, I don't know why you're applying there, because we're going to be on the road going to FAMU anyway, so you might as well go to FAMU. And so I tried to act like I was making this grand decision, but they were like, okay, so when we going to Tallahassee? And when we going to Tallahassee. So, of course, I chose FAMU, but it was one of those decisions that I know changed the path of my entire life. From my sorority, from my non-scholastic achievements, you know, half the stuff we're doing now, we'll talk about that later, is because of being a rattler. Like my decisions, like what would a rattler do? What would so-and-so do? Even you and I having this conversation, we were friends in school, but the post-rattler experience is really what people, that's really the biggest recruiting tool for me, because I'm like, look, it's good to go to school for those 4 years, but those after 4 years that really drive home the value of that 4-year degree, or 5 or 6 for some folks. So yeah, my journey was it was a no-brainer, but it was one of those decisions. Like, I'm so glad that I went to FAMU, not just in a cliche way, but like, I know where I was supposed to be.
No, me too, because like the way I entered FAM is nowhere near the way that I exited FAM, because when I got to FAM, I was anti anything with structure. Like anything that was like a group or a club or something like that was like felt regimented with structure. Like if people was in the Senate or if you were in fraternity or whatever it might be, I looked at that like hell nah. Like, no, I want to come in here and I want to be an anarchist against
everything,
whatever the rules are, right? And I realized that just came from being in neighborhoods where you had to be against the grain to not fall and succumb to what that neighborhood was about, right? And coming to FAM, though, more than just like my professors and talking to people in guidance there, it was mainly like seeing people who were coming, knowing exactly what they wanted to do with their life 10, 15 years out from there because of how they had grown up with their parents and, you know, in like the Cosby structured household. And not to take anything away from my mom or my family, because I always knew I was going to college because of them, like instilling that in me. But I never quite understood why, right? I was just like, this is just something you're supposed to do. Like, I'm supposed to go to college. I'm supposed to get a degree. And actually going to FAM, I think I learned the why. Like, you leave home to become, right? And I always give people that recommendation. Like, I know some people have a really, really, really hefty fear of vacating familiar territory. And that's like, soon as you get uncomfortable about that, that's when you know that's what you should be doing. I just didn't know what I was getting into. And so I feel like I got so lucky going to FAM.
Well, and I think, you know, we talk about excellence with caring and all those things. That to me is like, you know, people say HBCU experience is like being all these different things, but we live and breathe that. Like, we think of, like, you talk about the faculty members, because a lot of people don't know, I initially started in agricultural business. That was my major first. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that. Right. So, fun fact, but I started there because I wanted to get into FAMU. I wanted all this scholarship money. And so let me just get to school. You know, mama, let's just get into the school. And so I got there, and I think I ran across someone that said, you don't really want to do this, do you? I was like, I mean, I'm at FAMU. It's like, you know, agriculture, mechanical. They were like, this is not your passion. But every class I was up in the front, you know, giving up. They were like, you need to be in journalism. I was like, what's that? You know? And I had the charted path, like, go to FAMU, but it was like I got dropped off. I was like, y'all, what's next? Like, what are we doing here? And so that with caring portion came with those other classmates that saw something in me that I didn't necessarily see, and those faculty members. So I remember going to my counselor and saying, hey, I mean, I got the 3.8, I got the grades, but this is not something I can wake up and do every day. She said, well, why don't you go down to the PR department? I went over there. Everybody was loud and having a good time. I said, oh, this is where I belong. This is it. I found my home. I could be as, you know, out of control and have a good time and finding ways to put those words. And so I want to say that was my second semester of my freshman year, and I changed that day. And I want to say that's when my life took that, like, okay, she is on her road to stardom, so to speak. And so I think about, as I said, which faculty member? I had Dr. Donnellon, Professor Kimbrough, Dean Hawkins, you know, may you rest in peace. You think about all these professors that were like your parents on campus. They didn't even care about just your grades. They were like, did you eat today? You're not getting rest. Or, you know, what do you really want to do? Or finding those internships that just weren't about money, but putting you in a city that was going to help you grow, or sending you back home and say, you need to go home with your family. So I had that kind of experience where, although I knew my family's experience, I had my own excellence with caring path at FAMU. And I think that's like the orange and green blood in our veins. It's like, you know what, we love our school because of those special moments that we could probably never even talk about publicly.
100%. And I think what taught me about the experience at FAM even more was leaving FAM and then going to a PWI for grad school, right? And the experience being completely different. Like, I remember going to FAM, like you said, you were in a different major. I actually signed up for a different major and ended up in architecture. So which was where I wanted to be, but I just didn't quite understand what path it was. So FAMU FSU School of Engineering had civil engineering, which is quote unquote architectural engineering, right?
Right.
And outside of that school is, damn. All right, I got somebody here, so we might need to pause this. This is crazy because it was supposed to be at 4. Yeah, if you can. All right. All right. So
speaking of which,
yeah.
this is why entrepreneurship is so tough, because the work-life balance is tough. We want to show up for everybody and for everything and doing all these things. And of course, being a rattler taught us how to have a good time, how to look good, but also to have those hard, like we may have to stop. This is my business, real. Yeah. And so I'm right now pushing something off because I got to send out about 20 orders the moment I cut this laptop off. But I think, and I'm glad that happened, because that's like a real life thing. Yeah. Entrepreneurship as a rattler is a total different experience. A lot of people hear my story about how I became a painter during a snowstorm 2014. And the first person who bought one of my little sketches was a rattler. They're like, I'll send you $100 for that. I'm like, for this? What? Yeah. And I remember you being like, Mel, you own to something. And so I had all of my rattler friends telling me to just keep going. So I didn't even know what keep going meant. I just never stopped. And so when it came to all my big competitions and all my voting things, they were like, bruh, I don't know who your network is, but y'all have broken the voting system. I said, that's my rattlers every time.
That's beautiful. And we've seen that happen time after time with the network rattlers that exist, even for people that are adjacent to the network, but that have somehow infiltrated us. Like, she can go to fam, might be somebody's spouse or something like that, which we always pretty welcoming. But what I was telling you was I signed up for architectural engineering, right? And ended up in the School of Architecture. Two totally different things, but the path that I ultimately went in was what I originally was actually trying to do. And I remember Rodner Wright was the dean of the School of Architecture, and I remember him teaching my first class. And I remember like it was all about existing architects. And I remember that one of the things that they pointed out was that there was such a lack of Black architects. Like it was only 2% in the industry. And in my mind, I was like, I gotta be in that 2%. Wow. And so that set the tone from day one. That was like, I'm going through this, like I'm finishing this.
I'll do this.
Luckily, I was passionate about it. And I think had I been at another school and was not passionate about it, I wouldn't have had the same experience as you had, where people are like, you know what, you're good at this. Yeah. But this is not your purpose. Yeah. And it takes excellence with caring for that type of message to even be available to you, for people to be that invested in you. And that's what I experienced at FAM. Like I had a professor, Laverne Wells Bowie, and I remember we had an assignment. This was like an elective class that I took at the very end of right before graduating. And she gave me an assignment. And I remember I took that assignment. You're supposed to do something out of felt. And you had to make felt yourself. This was like more of like an art class than it was an architecture class, right? And I took this felt and I made it into a flag, like an old American flag. And it was suspended in between these wooden posts. And it was more symbolic than it was actually like what we were supposed to do in the assignment. And when I see Laverne, so every homecoming, I give away a scholarship with the exception of 2020 because of what happened. But we go back and we do a design charrette at the School of Architecture. Every time I see Laverne now, she tells me about that project. Every single time. She's like, oh, guys, I just remember that project. I think next time I go, I have it up in my house. I might take it back and give it to her. But it's those types of moments that I don't feel like you get them outside of the HBCU infrastructure. And I don't feel like even within that space, I still feel like there's differentiators at FAM from other people that I've talked to.
Yeah, I mean, we were thinking about our fondest memory. I mean, I have so many. We'll be here all day. But two that stand out the most for me, FAMU is always the spotlight. You know, we talk about the Howards, we talk about the Spelmans, the Morehouse, all those different things. But when media wants a school that they know they're going to get all the flashing lights, all the superstars, they all come to FAMU. And I got an email randomly. It was probably, this was after we had graduated. So maybe it was like 2007-ish. So I get a call from a producer. It's like, hey, we're bringing Monica's reality show to campus. I was like, oh, I got it. You know, and that's before we could just text people. So I sent out one email to one person. We ended up having 30 or 40 students live on TV. We ended up being on BET. Of course, I was, I was a star of the whole thing. And because of one conversation and one relationship, that ended up being the last opportunity my dad got to see me on the road to the stardom that I have now. And so those kind of moments will always stick with me. And a little rewinding, my senior year, I was having a hard time because, in PR, it's easy to stand out and do all these things when you're just talking. But academically, I was like, I'm trying to balance trying to be an AKA. I'm trying to still be on the scene, all these social things. And professors were like on my back. I was like, why y'all worry about, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be fine. And so I thought the people didn't like me. I got called to the office and I ended up winning PR Student of the Year. And I was like, I can do what? I was almost shocked. And they were like, we've seen your resilience. We believe that you're going to be the next rising star out of this school. And I'm like, what do y'all see? And so they saw that every time I got hit with a ton of bricks that I still was able to show up to the occasion. And so fast forward 2021, with everything that's happening with the economy, learning how to pivot, I go back to 15 years ago when I didn't think I was going to be able to pass the class or cross in my sorority or do all these things. I was being trained. It was like a boot camp for excellence, going to PAMU. And so now you could call me, like y'all just called me for this interview. I was ready within 5 minutes, because I know how to okay, let me get myself together. We're going to FAMU, cool. We got the theme, boom. And so we're resilient. And I think that's the fondest just memory of being a FAMU student, is that we were constantly being prepared for something bigger than us. And like, even now we're showing that it all paid off.
No, definitely. I think for me, so the architecture school, our experience as a student on FAMU's campus is quite different from many of the other schools. We're one of the only schools that had 24 hours access to our studio. And one of the only schools that would have assignments during convocation, at certain periods of time, because I was closer towards the latter end of the semester. And one of the best memories that I have actually happened after leaving and graduating and then coming back on campus. And poker, like the staff at the School of Architecture, they got the best poker faces. And the main reason is we have crit, right? So when you design something, you put together a full presentation, you build a model, etc. All of the components of your design, you explain publicly. And it's among your peers and your professors and sometimes associate professors and sometimes guests. They will judge you in your face, right? And it is like, the good thing is you do it for the entire time that you're in there, but you get crazy anxiety associated with this. So I leave, and I felt like I was a great student, right? Confidence never left while I was in there. I felt like I was killing it, but the reassurance wasn't necessarily 100% there, right? It was, you can do better, you can do better, you can do better. I came back and I was talking to the assistant dean. His name is Andrew Chen. We have a great relationship now. Like, we text each other.
But still,
I don't say all the time, but
you can't get that at school, even still.
And, I come back, and him and Ronald Lumpkin, who was the advisor, they both told me, they said, you guys raised the bar for what we knew to be possible from productivity from our students, and said me specifically. And
look at that.
That was probably the most special moment for me, coming back to campus, not really knowing, how I was viewed by the existing staff, because it wasn't like a ton of awards. I mean, secretly, like Ronald Lumpkin, he would find me scholarship money here and there and stuff like that, right? But it wasn't like a significant amount of awards. And if I did get some, I probably don't even remember them, because that's how my memory works. But that statement was one of the biggest things for me. And then followed by that was like actually establishing a scholarship, and being able to do that multiple years in a row, and now still have relationships with some of the students that we gave scholarships to, and for that to be aligned with exactly what that's like something special for me. I was doing it even when I didn't have the money, You know, it was just like, I'm gonna allocate this, and I know one day it's
no matter what.
Yeah, it'll pay for itself. I'm not even worried about it. And we're looking forward to doing it again. Like those are the moments for me.
Yeah. So what, we talked about entrepreneurship a little bit earlier. I'm trying to think what pivotal moment I knew that, okay, we know we all went to school to work a 9 to 5. That's what we were trained to do. But when did you know that entrepreneurship was your, like, okay, this is part of my story. Like I knew that for me, I knew that a 9 to 5 was like being in a cage. Like I could see outside of it, but I never witnessed my parents come home and just go to bed. It was always like, all right, let's find another project. It was never like come home from work, 5 o'clock, we eat dinner, 6 o'clock, we're in the bed by 7. I lived in a 24-hour operation at home. So I think for me, I was always waiting on my, okay, God, what's my thing? What am I supposed to do? So when it was time to like jump into the world, I already had all the skill set and the know-how. It just was a matter of the product. So once I got that in my network, it was out of there. So what was your like aha entrepreneurship moment?
Man, so I've been an entrepreneur since I was 5 years old. When I was 5, I used to draw drawings and I would sell them to people around the neighborhood. As I got older, I used to sell, I don't know what y'all call them, but we call them lily dillies. They're like flip cups where
like frozen cups?
Frozen cups. I used to sell those. I was that guy in school.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
I was the candy dude, right? In middle school, high school, I had all the candy.
So Airheads, right?
Yeah, including Airheads was like my main thing. And you know why you plug that, because we have a problem with Airheads dropping in like 10 days or less than that. And by the time you guys see this, it might already be out. But so then I got to high school. I was the guy that you get all the music from, selling CDs. Started DJing parties in high school. Got to college. I was a dude that might design your campaign flyer, DJ your party.
Look at that.
I'm gonna sell you a pizza in the dorm, and have the art supplies for all the students in architecture.
That's crazy.
And then I was working for the print company, so if you come in, I might hook you up with the print.
You did. Yeah. That's crazy.
And so like the entire time, and it was a lot of that was just the nature of like my upbringing. I didn't have a lot, so I would always find ways to make something out of nothing. And in architecture, even thinking about what it would be to become an architect that was practicing, and I practiced for a little while, the intent there was also always to just do my own projects. It wasn't until I think I was in my second year, and I met one of my good friends now. His name's David Wallace, and we couldn't afford like dope clothes, right? So we would go to I think it was Foot Action or Foot Locker, one of them, and they had like 5 t-shirts for $20. Yeah, and we already had all of these supplies, these art supplies, and so we would paint our own tees, right? And initially it was just so we could have something dope, because we can't buy anything dope because it's too expensive. We don't have any money. So we started making them, and people would be like, oh, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? And so then that hustle became something that we realized we were passionate about. I was passionate about. And so it became kind of competitive between me and him, like who could do the best one. And it made us get better and better and better and better and better. And then we started selling them. And that stuck with me. So even when I left FAM, I couldn't get away from the energy that gave me. And so I think I established the business in like 2008, which was really just 2 years after I was out of school. No, 2007, just a year after I was out of school, and was playing around, in that space and wasting money in my mind. Like I was just pouring money into randomness, like no planning, because I'm an artist first. I'm a businessman second.
Just the flow.
And so I'm just going with the flow, but my money is flowing out. But no matter how hard I tried to focus on this career that I was great at, I couldn't get away from this design outlet that I had, this creative outlet that I had. So I think innately, for me, it was always in me. I knew that I didn't have the luxury to focus on that right away because of my upbringing, my background. I didn't have like a rich uncle or somebody that could support me. So I had to make sure that I at least set up a foundation for myself. But it was always there. It was always there. It was just a matter of what it was going to be and where I was going to really focus my time. And I feel so grateful that I found this space that I'm in now, because I could not have projected this. Like, I couldn't have like visualized this specifically. And, you know, it's to me, it's just a testament to what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's remarkable. I think that's what makes every entrepreneur story so unique, is because some happen by accident, some learn on the job, some go to school for it, some have family that train them. And I definitely believe that FAMU was a part of my entrepreneur upbringing. I mean, like you talk about the campaign, I was over everybody's campaign. I was, you know, used World Court Advisor. And so I think learning how to travel with the court and with the team everywhere they went, that taught me, like, now, like traveling for work or, you know, doing this. So I think when we talk about like our toughest decisions, I remember my first mural that I got an assignment. It was the same weekend as my line sister's wedding. And so it would either make this money to pay all of these bills or because I sing. So I had to sing for the wedding. And I'm like, I'm not going to come to this wedding. And so I had to make the executive decision. This was like early in the art game. So I was like, I got a paying gig. I can't let this go. Yeah. So I began to feel bad about it. But God was like, how bad do you want it? And I was like, I'd rather miss this opportunity. I catch all of the 5-year anniversary, but I got to do this. And so that one mural set the tone for the rest of my art career. But if I would have started feeling bad about missing things. So I think once I made that tough decision, I began to be able to say no to anything when it came to my social life. And so all of those sacrifices along the way has taught me how to be a better time management, you know, understand the value of, hey, I'm on my route to be this kind of person. I'm going to have to sacrifice in this area, and your family and your friends begin to understand it. But those decisions are hard in the beginning because you just feel worthless. You're like, dang, I'm missing all the stuff. You know, I'm not present for this. I'm not doing this. And so again, going back to that FAMU stuff, it's like, I'm not going to go to the party. I got to do my homework. You know, I was out all weekend. I can't show up. And so I think entrepreneurially, it just triggered something in me. It's like, I did it before, I could do it again. I ain't better do it. I say now with technology, FaceTime me in, I sing and send a video. And so that's what I was able to do. But learning how to balance and just be innovative with your showing up for people will go a long way. So what was like one of your toughest, I know we had a whole bunch, but what's one of your toughest moments entrepreneurially?
Man, so when I was in grad school, I opened a store in the Bahamas. It was called 242 Dungeon. And me and my best friend, we opened this store. We didn't have any plan. It was just, you know, us moving on a whim. And and we had two lines, Dungeon Forward and 242. 242 is the area code in the Bahamas. And we would pay cab drivers to bring tourists to our store so they could purchase goods. And I think it was less than a year after the store opened, the Bahamas, this was Freeport, Bahamas, got hit by a terrible hurricane. And it didn't tear up our store, but people were not shopping like at that point. And so at the point in time where we had to realize we had to shut these doors of this thing that was our baby, that we put all this effort in to build out, to get inventory for, and then we have to shut it down. Yeah. Like that, to me, that was like shutting everything down. Like that was like putting the business down. The second tough decision that I had to make after that, because even after that, I still, in my mindset would not let me get away from it. I just shifted that from doing work where I had to travel overseas to go do the work to doing work in Miami. And the toughest decision that I had to make as an entrepreneur was to get a job. I felt like failure. Like going to get a job felt like failure. And the moment that I made that decision, which actually was probably one of the best decisions in my life, because it changed the trajectory of my life, and it also taught me so many lessons that I didn't realize I didn't know. Because I took a role in Cincinnati, had to move. I was in a corporate real estate firm doing project management for Procter & Gamble, and it was a space that I hadn't existed in. Although I knew I could flourish in it, there was certain language that they used that I wasn't familiar with. So I immediately had to go in and absorb all of this And all of that ultimately impacted me as an entrepreneur. But that first acceptance of an offer to go work for somebody after having already gotten the taste of what it was to be a full-time entrepreneur, that irked my soul.
Yeah.
Like I literally felt like a failure. And I remember like my colleagues telling me like, yo, I don't understand. Like, you just got a really dope job offer and it's an amazing gig. I was like, well, you don't understand me. Like, it's not about that. Like, I have a perspective that I want to share independently.
Right.
And this is, to me, a major distraction.
Yeah.
From, but ultimately, I you know, it ended up being a good thing, even though at the time it felt horrible, you know?
Yeah.
But I know you had some tough decisions to make. I don't even know if you shared them, so forgive me.
No, I'm not telling it, but
Okay.
but talking about balance, you know, I have a lot on my plate. I'm the oldest daughter. You know, I'm constantly trying to figure out if I'm honoring my father enough with what I'm doing. And so I had to come out of that shadow of, you know, what would dad do? You know, that was like, that's still kind of tough without feeling like, because I mean, he had a whole company that I have not restarted. Right. And people every day are like, when are you going to do this? I was like, well, I don't want to do it. You know, you can't make me do it. So now I'm struggling with how do I honor him and still be Abeille Creations and Perusia gear. So, you know, it's really tough having someone who laid the foundation. It's kind of like collecting dust for 11 years. And so I think right now, one of my toughest decisions is to say, how do I move forward from that? Because he was such a mammoth of a FAMU, and people are like, well, you know, I didn't know your daddy died. You know, I got to tell them the story. And so, but we still see his stuff everywhere. So it's like, is it a profit thing or is it a passion thing? And so that's where I am with that. And so I think when I go to give advice for entrepreneurs and how do they move forward, is do what feels right. And even if it doesn't feel right, at least you trusted how you felt. And get some of those mentors, talk to the right people. And I always get people ask me, can they be an investor? So I'm leaning towards allowing investing right now. But in the beginning, I was like, I do this by myself. I don't need no loan. I don't need no grant. Now I'm like, well, how much you want to loan me? You know, how does that look? So it's just being open to growing in new ways. That's where I'm kind of am right now. I can make the money, but this scaling up, because I've been having the conversations with the large corporations and getting in stores. They talk about minimum quantity 10,000. I said 10,000 head wraps. I said that's times 20. I said how much? You know, that's our savings. So it's tough because it's like now I've hit this plateau. Okay, I can make 100K, I can make 200K, I can make 300K. But when do those M's come rolling in? You know, when we talk about that M right now, we want to get to, but it's like, how does that look? That once you're here, how do you go from here? Because we've been kind of like here for a while, but now we want to be here with out of the reach. And so I think for me, it's taking some really quiet moments for me. Because God is saying, like I told you, it's not about money, it's about the faith. And I think that's what's been keeping my business afloat. So now it's faith over fear, because I've been afraid to make a lot of decisions up until recently. And I'm like, oh, I done did that. I'm good now. Now I'm like, wait, where everybody at? Where the parachute? Where the people at? So I'm floating right now. That's why I ain't ready to talk about all of it. But I'm grateful for friends like you that show me it's possible to dream big and to not worry about a safety net and just and create without any just putting myself in a box, not following any programming, making sure that I do tap on all of my talents without feeling bad about something else kind of being left to the side. I'm pushing it.
It's so you talk about the money thing, and me had that conversation, and you know, I told you this, and the less I focus on money, the more it happens. And it's because when you relinquish yourself of that, like, because it can control you, like it can, like there can be opportunities that come up that look really great, but they don't align with like your mantra. And it can be very difficult to say no to those when you know it could be lucrative. But and that's why I say I'm an artist first, because there might be other people that disagree with that, right? But for me, the freedom, like the freedom to create, the freedom to inspire, the freedom to tell stories that we want to tell, that nobody else is dictating. And so I made it a point throughout the duration of building this to bootstrap it 100%. And I remember I was watching a video of somebody, you know, Sarah Blakely, who has a multi-billion-dollar business
Not a
and
dime.
has 100% equity.
Not a dime.
And for me, I felt like it was integral for me to be able to change like the trajectory of my family and break generational curses by maintaining 100% ownership of something. And that's where we stand right now. And you know, who knows? You know, the larger it gets, you know, you never know. I mean, we've gotten some crazy phone calls recently, and crazy phone. I mean, I told you about one. And so so I can't mention it yet because the ink isn't dry, but just know that there's going to be a major announcement with Dungeon Ford in July, the specific partnership that we have. And we got a phone call from a space up in New York, Showfields. So we'll be debuting the brand there towards the latter end of this month. And people have been inundating us with messages about boutique stores all over the United States and in the world. Over time, we've sold the stores in Paris. We've sold the stores in the Bahamas. We sold the stores in London. We've sold to customers in over 30 countries at this point, and all 50 states. And it's like, to witness this, knowing that I came from, you know, the painted shirts on FAMU's campus, it's humbling, and I'm very, very grateful. But I have a question for you though. Like, what would you advise somebody to do if they were looking to go the entrepreneurship route? Because it ain't easy.
You know, I'm a proponent of a 9-to-5, and for many reasons, because I feel like you have a skill set. I know when I applied for my job, I prayed for it. So God gave me that job. So I didn't want to squander my answered prayers just to jump and do something else. So I like being uncomfortable. And I'm a person that likes to do that. So I say, work your job. A lot of people say, oh, quit your job and run after this. And I was like, you don't have to do that, because a lot of people don't have a plan when they leave. And so I say, get your plan together. Some people can be a little whimsical and do things without a plan, but work your job, work a 9-to-5 and then have a 5-to-9. And so find a way to balance that and figure out exactly what you want to do. Like for me, I'm in a place in Atlanta, everybody's an artist. Everybody's a hairstylist, everybody doing lashes. It's everybody doing everything. So I had to find my unique lane that allowed me to be the Melissa Mitchell of the artist, you know. And so I think you're the David Castro of the hat community. And there is no one like you. There are a lot of imitators. I mean, I've seen people still send me like, this look like your shirt. I said, you know what? I can't focus on that. You know, I can't focus on the folk that I'm gonna have to probably end up having a cease and desist soon. But when I'm creating this lane, I am opening the door for others, but I'm also carving a path that's new to me. And so my advice is to become the best version of you that you can be as a creator. Really, really study your craft. Don't oversaturate yourself with information, but learn what you're trying to do. A lot of people get out here and say they want to do something. I ask you 2 questions, you don't have an answer. It's like, oh, you trying to do this for real? You know, we have this down. Like right now, we don't have downtime anymore. I don't have time to learn how to do Photoshop. I got to have all these skill sets locked and loaded. So when I wasn't selling art, now I know how to digitize. So the piece behind me that everybody wants to buy, I got to charge at least $15,000, you know, for me to feel okay with letting it go. But I created the right kind of audience. I told my story very authentically. I worked on content. Now, one thing about it, I know a lot of people aren't into cameras and doing things, but content is king in this day and age. So even if you don't know your why or your audience, always chronicle your story. So I have pictures all the way from the early 2000s when I was just being Melissa that I can match to this story.
Yeah.
Content creation, it's really, really honing in on who you are as a creator or whatever you're doing. So if you're making baby food, you need to know every baby food on the market to say, how is your baby food any different? You know, even to this day, people are like, well, how did you get your hair wraps like that? I said, I wore over 100 different hair wraps. So when 101 came out, mine, it was like nothing on the market because I found everything that I was missing with someone else's. And just like people are like, that's the dungeon hat, ain't it? I mean, I literally had it to the back. It was in the back of my car. People knew it was your hat from miles away because you've created this imprint as a designer that people know who you are. But that came from years and years of figuring out what I wanted to do with my product to make it stand out amongst all the other products.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would give very similar advice. I wouldn't say I'm a proponent of a 9-to-5. Like if you have the ability, like there's somebody in your family that'll back your business.
Yeah.
Go that route. You know, don't feel bad about the fact that you might have a one-up on somebody. That's your advantage. Like that's what you have. Like, my advantage in life is my creativity. Like I knew that my creativity would take me out of bondage, right? I knew that, right? From the get-go, I always knew that was the case. I didn't know how it was going to happen, right? But I will say for those that do work a job and have an idea that they want to try it, right? Don't spend so much time planning. Like try it, fail, try it again, fail, try it again, fail. Use your job as your investor. Use your job as your investor. Take that money, invest in yourself, invest in your knowledge, invest in anything that you need to learn to accomplish what it is that is on your mind, because that investment can potentially pay 1,000,000-fold, literally. Yeah. And then a lot of people ask, like, when do you determine when you quit, right?
No, you'll know.
Say when your job, there's two things that I noticed, right? When I quit my gig, and it actually, like, people didn't even realize I had a job, which is even more funny. But so I quit a couple of years ago. But when I made that decision, one, I wasn't being productive, right? I could not be as productive as I normally would be in a space, and that's just not how I do work, right? They weren't aware of this because it was just starting to occur, right? So all of my amazing work predated that, and so they're on a high from everything that I've done. But the second thing was work was getting in the way. Work was in the way of opportunity. Not even, I mean, I worked from home. So a lot of people were like, man, you work from home, you make X amount of dollars. How can this be a bad thing for you? I was like, you don't understand. It's occupying space in my mind. Like, it's not just occupying time during the day, which is already excessive, you know, and I started to look at like what my time was worth working on my business from an hour standpoint versus my time working for my gig, and it's not even close. Like it wasn't even close, and I'm not, like, you know where I was from a salary standpoint, like it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close, and my peers were like, you can't leave this, like you can't leave this job because it's so much money. They're matching this. They're giving you bonus. They're giving all that. I was like, you don't.
It wasn't worth it.
When I left options that were going to vest in December on the table. I left in November. I left a 20% bonus that was going to happen the following May, which was ridiculous, right? A ridiculous bonus. Yeah. But I knew that with the time that was being allocated to that job, I could focus on building my team, focus on transferring my website to something that would work better for me, that would funnel more data to me. I was working on new designs, more intentional focused efforts in marketing. At that point, I was the promoter on FAMU's campus at that point.
Yeah.
I know that if I want you to come to my club, I gotta take you to Amara. I'm gonna shuttle you there. Yeah. So I started shuttling people to my brand in the same way that we would do that.
Come on, Pastor.
I mean, hey, it is what it is. Guerrilla marketing, you know? Yeah. Same thing you do to a degree.
You see me?
You live and breathe it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as we wrap up, I think, you know, we're spiritually, we're on the same page as far as that. But growing up, I just saw God reward outrageous faith. And what didn't make sense to anybody else, it always made sense to me. And if I could tell anybody one sentence, it's just trust your voice. You'll get some, like you said, I had to do what worked for me. And the same with me. I still was trying to figure out what my magic jumping number, or, I'm gonna quit when I make 100,000 when I do this. And so when I start hitting these numbers, I was like, oh, it's not about the numbers. It's me. It was always me. God was like, the money was always gonna come. Like, I was waiting on you to do what you need to do. And so trusting your voice and trusting your God is really the biggest, resounding theme of my whole life. And that's with everything. And so I think as we close it all up, FAMU has taught us, of course, excellence with caring, but it has made our skin as thick as a rattler. And we have learned to shed those layers as needed with every regeneration of who we become. And so it's an honor to stand amongst alumni like yourself and so many others. And I mean, every day there's not a day that goes by that I don't get a message from a potential rattler, a current rattler, or a former rattler that is saying, we're excited about what you're doing and thank you. So finding me is very easy online. It's literally my name. It's melissaAmitchell.com. And if you're one of the Instagram folks where you can always find me rattling off or sending real cute selfies, it is Abeille Creations, and that is ABEILLE Creations. And if you can't figure out the spelling, you can always go to my website and click on my Instagram from there. And how can we find you, Mr. Castro?
You can find me, if you want to find me personally, my page is I am Castro on Instagram. I think you can see Dungeon Ford underneath the screen. But if not, it's spelled DUNGEONFORWARD. That's every social media outlet. And then you can find me wherever the bros are at, because I got to shout out the Q's on here just to make her do that.
Whatever.
Yeah, but
you always find the bros where these are too. Oh, okay.
Clearly.
Exactly. My line sister. Exactly. But yeah. So that is, I think that's it. I think we're good to go. Thank you all for having us. We hope that this shed a little light of what being a rattler in the entrepreneur world is all about. We love your support. And thank you for almost selling out my hat that I have the collaboration with Dungeon Ford. We forgot to talk about that. The Ikena crown, honoring my father with all the colors. And so it's just another testament of having dope relationships outside of the 4 years that I've been at FAMU.
And you know what? I know we just closed, but I do want to say one thing about that, right? Yeah. Me and Melissa have been talking for several years about potentially doing some work together. This was not a fly-by-night thing that we did. And in our conversations, we realized that in doing it now, the timing was perfect. But one thing to note from that is how valuable the relationships are that you build at FAM. And so when building those relationships, be authentic in it, because if we weren't authentic, we would have never ended up working together. Like this happened organically, and it was something that, I think it was really special to my brand. I really think that working with you was seamless, and it wouldn't have been that way had it not been because of our previous relationship. And so for everybody that's out there, that's probably the best thing that I got from FAMU, and I think Melissa would attest to this. And it's the people that I encountered there. Black excellence came out of there.
Yeah, and it's inspiring. There's not a day goes by to the rattler. It's like, she done did this. She went to FAM. It's like, when she went to FAM. And so there's somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that went to FAM, and it always comes back to being on the hill. And I'm grateful. I'm not going to cry because I did a good job, but connecting with people that are like you inside and outside of the school, it's been amazing. It's the post experience for me. It's the post rattler experience for me.
100%.
Think about it. We have the CEO of Converse. We got Jerry over at Adidas. And these people are literally a phone call away. We didn't even pull out the hat. Like, should we text them? Should we call them? And so as we're climbing, these people are watching us, and they're waiting for us to say, if y'all need us to pull you up, we will. And so the same way people are pulling us up, Castro and I are really good about privately helping people in the industry. And so we do what we have to do by keeping the love circle going. But that's important to us, is that the real relationships, not just the when you need something, it's the real authentic FAMU experience. and that really lasts your lifetime. It just means the most. It's like a big fraternity / sorority all in one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yo, thank you all. FAMU House.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
And we're out, I think.